Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where it's about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Charmed. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, Harry's going away because he's moving on to the next part of his situation to become human, and mortal. And obviously, you know, Macy's like, are you sure about this? And he's like, yeah, are you sure? So he kind of goes off, kind of at the worst time considering, like, you know, Maggie breaks the news to Mel and Macy about Jordan being in there in the Tomb of Chaos with Abigail. And it's like, okay, so maybe, hopefully this is a mistake. And it's like, nope, it was done on purpose because Abigail is a source of chaos. I figured as much because they're all about order and everything. So once again, they're trying to build like a utopia type of thing, like I've referenced before, like very much like the avatars in the original series. But for them, it's like all the chaos has to be put in there. That includes all the monsters, anyone that's chaotic. And Abigail has proven time and time and again to be chaotic. But Jordan's, you know, lumped in it because it's like he was with her, so guilt by association type of thing. So he's chaotic too. But it's like, no, like Jordan's done what he's done, that like he's a good person. So I was like, okay, but basically, well, to do that, you have to prove that Abigail is innocent. It's like, wait, what? Well, if he's a good person and he's working with her, that means that she is a good person by connection. And like Macy's like, what that doesn't make any sense. So to get Jordan out of the, you know, tomb and everything, prove him innocent, they have to prove Abigail innocent, which is like Macy being like, how do we do that for someone who literally deserves to be there? And I think it's so incredible. This episode is very reminiscent, I think, on purpose of there was a trial episode in the original show. I think basically what ended up, I forgot what went down, but basically there were some circumstances where something supernatural related happened and Daryl basically got like arrested and eventually put on death row for something he had nothing to do with. And the Charmed are basically trying to get like a trial to like rewind things to make it so that to kind of undo like this whole situation. If I remember correctly, they kind of lost the case to a certain extent. No, like, they kind of won, but they also lost. Like, Daryl got saved, but they had to pay a price at the very end of it. If I remember correctly, Phoebe lost her levitation abilities, because at the time she had her premonition abilities and levitation. And I think to punish her, they took away her levitation at the time, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Not unless that levitation came from, because I think maybe it started off as telekinesis and then turned into levitation, or she used her telekinesis as levitation. I don't remember. But that ended up being that episode, I believe. So it's very reminiscent in that case. So it's like, but now it's like once again, what the show does, it remixes stuff. So it's like, all right, so how do we prove someone innocent? It's like, well, Mel's at the very least, like, there is some good in Abigail. So we need to find some way. Like, this isn't just about saving Abby. This is about Jordan. So to save Jordan, we have to save Abby. So Maggie goes to visit him, like obviously using that drink to kind of make it so that the tomb's psychic effects on you don't work, kind of driving you insane and making you see stuff. When she meets Jordan, it's like, oh yeah, his circumstances aren't good. He's kind of lost his mind a little bit because he's like, oh, Trish, and it's like, hey, we got introduced to Trish, which is actually kind of an insult for him to call Maggie that. But I think that also shows you the parallels of like, right, how the way he views Maggie. The fact is he just happens to see her that way, which to be fair, the way he kind of does it later on when he calls her, like, sees his mom. But I think that's also because like she's someone that's very important to him. Like he associates like, oh, my feelings for you are like how I felt about Trish. Trish was my high school crush and everything. Which I think you could probably look at a deeper thing of like she wasn't good for me in the sense of like, right, she had her complicated circumstances, as we learned in that episode where him and Macy got closer, going through Jordan's past and everything. But also he saw her like when he was like a 7-year-old again or whatever, he saw her as his mom, which is also a weird thing. But like, don't they say that thing about like basically you marry your own parent? Like don't they say like guys go after women that are like their mothers and girls go after dudes that are like their dad? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a deep Freudian like thing about that. But like from a psychological standpoint, isn't that what they say? I mean, that might be a thing of like borderlining, like that's probably more so about like, oh, if you have mommy or daddy issues, that correlates. Maybe that isn't like all across the board, but maybe some people fit in that mode. Whatever the case may be, I feel like that's a thing, but I could be wrong. But the fact is, his mother is someone that's like, oh, you're compassionate, you're there, supportive. So, like, you know, how he would view Maggie, like, a lot of the qualities he loved in his mom, that's who Maggie is. She's a very protective, you know, a sympathetic, empathetic person. I mean, it fits her being the empath that she is, too. So, I think that, like, kind of correlates in certain regards. But I thought it was interesting how they present it, too. Because the moment Mel goes to visit, our other client, Abigail, is like, Abigail's baking and all this stuff. She hasn't forgotten everything. She remembers everything because she gave in. So, hey, Abigail's giving in. Everything's honky-dory. Jordan kept fighting it. Hence why when Maggie's finding him, he's training because, like, it's a physical representation of him mentally fighting and trying to find a way out of here. So he's being punished and why his situation and circumstances look the way they do. So I thought that was interesting. Jordan was fighting his way out, and Abigail was like, "No, I deserve to be here," and she says that, and she doesn't believe in like getting out of there. So that turns into a complicated thing when it comes to the whole trial eventually, because it's like, right, they can't convince Abigail to like redeem her. Like obviously, Macy was like, "Fine, if she's not going to come out, I'll go in there." Like she's the one that's been the most like blah 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 towards Abigail. To be fair, she has a lot of issues with Abigail, but at least like Maggie's coming at it from a perspective of like more so just saving Jordan, but also I think Mel's coming from it the perspective of, right, I've said what I've said about Abigail, but I'm the one who does see more of a positive light in her. To be fair, it's very interesting because obviously Maggie felt the same way about Parker, you know, so. But when Macy has her like, oh, look at all this stuff that you've done, it's like, yeah, but all that stuff I did to benefit me. And then eventually she kind of has a bit of a mental breakdown because her mom pops up and it's like, yeah, tell her you can't help her with the whole Jordan thing. And she's like, you got to go in the box. And if you don't tell her you can't help her, you're going to stay in there. And she's like huddled up in a fetal position, not fetal position, but she's rocking back and forth. And Macy's like, what the hell was that? So that means Macy probably just saw her just suddenly start crawling on the floor, get to one spot and just start cradling herself back and forth. She's like, don't worry about it. Just go. Don't come back. So now the trial starts, and it's basically once again, I always think it's interesting when shows are able to do this, kind of like recap things to a certain extent. Like I know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did kind of a little bit of a recap because it's like, hey, in the sense of like ended up facing threats that they come across over the course of the show. Like one example would be like Hive ended up popping up. It was kind of like, I believe that was their 100th episode. So, you know, but once again, I believe like the original show did a very similar thing of like, oh, look at some of this past stuff that was very pertinent to the trial, and we're doing that in this particular case because it ends up being like, oh, like the final thing is like a statue that has innocent and guilty, and I love it's like, wait, the one deciding all this is a freaking statue, and it's like it turns out that is to be the case. So. Obviously, Abigail is brought forefront and center to kind of be at the centerfold of, hey, why she's, you know, it's like, you know, to be judged and everything. I'm surprised it didn't come up in the episode. They never circle back to why Jordan was helping her in the first place. I feel like that would have leaned very helpfully into why she, like, you know, the whole point is like she's chaotic. It's like, oh, she was trying to seal away her demon side. But it's like maybe the argument could be you don't know what the ripple effect of that could have been that could have led to some issues down the road or whatever. So maybe it wouldn't have helped. But I feel like that, you know, is an important distinction. So obviously they run through some of the terrible stuff Abigail's done. Obviously they try to point out all the good stuff that Abigail's done, but at the same time it's like, you know, the Charmers try to defend her because it's like, yep, we're literally her only representatives because we sent a letter to her sister, and her sister was like, nope, whatever my sister's gotten herself into, she deserves it. I hope she spends the rest of her life locked up. And literally no one else to turn to. I kept thinking like, oh, Harry, because Harry, like Mel, constantly saw the good in Abigail, which I'm sure very much to Macy's chagrin, because even Abigail threw that in her face like, oh, look, this is me and Harry about to kiss. And then Macy was like, well, the fact of the matter is we've moved on, and obviously you're not part of that, so I'm not going to like get like driven into your bait. But you know, so it seems like they're kind of like things are not looking good. It's definitely leaning towards the guilty side, and Abigail's not helping her case because she believes she deserves to be punished, and that's what this is all about. So Maggie ends up forcing her to like take some truth serum, and we basically end up like getting like what she's kind of holding back the entire time. And it's like, despite you wanting to kill us from time to time, there's other times you help us. Why? And she's like, on some, like, she just wants a crumb of God, I forgot. Essentially companionship, essentially, because she's very lonely, and so the fact of the matter, she helps the charm ones because she kind of wants to kind of be brought into that circle, because, you know, like I said, it's like a crumb. I remember that distinct word, but I can't remember the exact wording. But essentially, she wants like a crumb of like compatriotism, like with, you know, compatriots with the charm ones, essentially. And it's almost like everyone's like, oh, it's like why did you, you know, why did you help Macy get rid of her demon sign? And it's like, because I knew that the charm ones are the most powerful people out there, and eventually there would be a threat so big that even the demon overlord couldn't help. So, like, for her, it's like, me helping the charm ones is helping the magical world at large. Yes, you know, it's a little selfish at the same time, but it was a little altruistic, her reasoning behind it. Also, it's like, oh, why did you help out Mel? And it was like, because I really care deeply about Mel, and basically she's the only person that kind of like sees me a certain way, and I kind of want to I want to fight every instinct of being who I am just so I can live up to Mel's expectation. And Mel's almost looking like, wait, what? That, to me, like, it's probably not going to happen because of Ruby, but I'm like, that seemed like that's hitting towards like a, oh yeah, definitely like, oh, like, it don't sound like a, maybe it's just a friend thing, because like maybe Mel is the closest thing she has to a friend, but maybe it's also like, I feel like it's a little more intimate than that. I think she has a thing for Mel, and even Mel being like, oh, whoa, oh, because it's like, because that's a person she spent the most time with recently. Like, a lot of times stuff goes down, it's like Mel and her like end up kind of, you know, it's like, yeah, you went to the future with her and everything to pick up the piece of the source, and it's like, that was another thing. It's like, if it wasn't for her, the magical world wouldn't have been restored. But once again, that was Abigail's thought was kind of like, yeah, it's just me being selfish. It's also, oh, why'd you help out Harry? Because despite his past and everything, he's a decent man, and the fact of the matter is this, I can't imagine living in a world where he doesn't exist in it. And it's almost like, whoa, because for her, when she looks at Harry, she sees herself, because it's like, yeah, who he was is Jimmy. He wasn't a good person, but look at the man that before. It's like, if he can become that, then who can I become, you know? But then, like, the Perfecti were like, oh, let's reveal this. You took Macy's demon powers, which I was like, I forgot about that aspect. And it's like, also, and then they showed, like, Parker's conversation, and then Macy got pissed because I was like, oh, snap, I forgot about that, but also I forgot you didn't. I remembered it, and I was like, oh, okay. Oh, you guys didn't know that. Oh, I guess it just, in my head, I just assumed that it's like, right, there was never a scene to be like, oh, she took it. She showcased her powers later on, but never showcased, like, oh, I'm more powerful now because I took Macy's power, which even she's saying, like, yeah, I'm irredeemable, like, you know, like Mel said, so it should come as no surprise. Like, you wanted to get rid of your demon powers, and yes, it's like, no, like, the moment you were helping me get rid of my demon powers, you knew what was going to happen. It's like, yes, I had planned from the very beginning, like, I was going to take it, So obviously Maggie is trying to get Jordan, but once again, Jordan's not in that good enough position. And he talks a little bit about his relationship with his dad. He doesn't really know how his dad feels, but, you know, Maggie brings up the fact is sometimes you kind of feel almost a little too much all at once, and it's hard to kind of put it all into words, essentially. It's like, she ends up talking about, like, sometimes you might feel a certain way, but you kind of, like, wait too long, and now kind of, like, you kind of missed your opportunity, like, and he's going, what are you talking about? She's like, nothing. And she's talking about herself. She felt like she knew how she really felt about Jordan, but she just kept putting it off for so long. And now it's like, right, you wait till like the last moment, and now like they're in the situation they are in, like, whereas they could have gotten this out of the way and could have potentially been happy and everything, you know? But they eventually put Abigail's mom on the stand, and her mom talks about what she did to Waverly and stuff like that. Obviously leaving out the aspect of, well, for one, this is a younger Abigail, but then we also found, I thought it was bad with the box. Mel kind of confronts her and is like, okay, what did you do? And then, like, Abigail brings up, like, what her mom did. Her mom put, like, shock cuffs on her, you know, and it's like, wait, you put it on a 2-year-old? It's like, yeah, like, her mom's abuse is crazy. It's like, you use those on me, even aside from my demon side, you also use them on me anytime I use my witch powers, because no matter what I did, I was always that hybrid. And that was also a thing, too. She was like, yeah, it happens with hybrid children. I was like, really? That's effed up. I mean, I guess it's like, right, like, if there's a person out there that's, like, part demon, it makes you wonder, well, I'm sure I'm sure Alistair never worried about that because he wanted Parker to lean into his demon side and stuff like that. But the fact is, it's like, oh, learning that it's not just her that went through that, like other hybrid children do that. Because I guess it's their way, like, oh, we have to use essentially, it's all, I mean, it makes sense. You do the same thing with children. Like, you reward good behavior, you punish bad behavior. You kind of do the same thing to a dog. Specifically using a shock collar feels more like, I'm not saying you should use that on an animal in any shape or form. That's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to do. But it seemed like she's treating her more like a terrible person would treat an animal than like a terrible, like, I'm not justifying it either way, like animal or, but it is like she's like, you wouldn't and shouldn't treat an animal like that, but she was treating her like less than an animal doing that. It's crazy. That's a mom doing that too. And also when like Abigail got sent away, you saw that smirk on her mom's face. It's like, you were, like, that's the thing, you want to punish her for being evil, but it's like, look at you, like, you aren't a good person, like. And I thought that was kind of the beauty of it too. Like, this is a prime example of nature versus nurture. Because it's like, despite all the things about Abigail, she might be part demon and stuff like that. But we've shown that just because you're part demon doesn't mean anything. Look at Macy. Macy wasn't, granted her circumstances were different. That was kind of a different circumstance for her. Because it's like, right, her demon powers came about because her mom resurrected her. Parker, half human, half demon. His demon situation, like, he just wanted his father's love. So he kind of went along with a lot of stuff, but we saw time and time again how good-natured Parker could be. Yes, there were bumps along the road, but still. Same thing for Abigail. Her mom's treatment of her is what led to that, Because it's probably like a chicken or the egg. Was she misbehaving like her demon side? Or were you already punishing her and like her demon side, she was lashing out towards her sister because like her sister got all the praise and never had any of the abuse? Because also, like, Abigail was like, how are you going to punish me? You're the one that had a tryst with the demon, and I was a byproduct. You want to punish me because of your poor decisions? And that's that messed up thing, It's not a one-for-one, but I'm not going to go into it, like, too deeply because it's a complicated subject. But obviously, it's like, when there's a child born out of terrible circumstances, like, sometimes the child could get treated differently because it's like, right, you are a reminder of this terrible thing that happened to me. So, cause we never found out why they got together, whether she was tricked or what, whatever the case may be. It's sad. And it's also, it makes you wonder, like, does her sister hold a resentment against her because of their mom? Or is it because she just grows to resent Abigail because Abigail resents her so much? But it's like, does she not know what... I mean, considering, like, oh, like, she was holding Waverly when she was young by her wrist, burned down the house with us, and it, like, yes, she's chaotic and stuff like that, but it was also a byproduct of you and your abuse and what that did. Once again, a nature versus nurture thing. Like, who knows if she had a different mother, different upbringing, who Abigail could be. She could, we've seen time and time again, yes, she could be a little manipulative, but there is good in her, like, at her core. She can be good. She's proven it time and time again, So... I thought that was kind of a fascinating element to that. Maybe we can see that kind of potentially be a route we go later on, is bringing Waverly into the story so that there could be a sisterly bond, because that was something she had talked about earlier in the show. It's like, you guys have each other's back. You're always there defending each other. Like for Abigail, it's like, every battle I've ever been, I've had to do it alone. I definitely haven't had my mother's support, definitely haven't my father's support. That was a whole complicated thing in itself. I'm not saying my mom's thing ain't super complicated, but also I've never had my own sister. Like, I think that's also the thing too. Like, she looks at the charm ones. She's, the fact is they have everything. It's like they have love, both familial love, because obviously the relationship they have with their mom, it probably makes you a little, like, jealous and envious. Plus their relationship with each other, like, and then the romantic relationships, in particular, like the Harry and Macy thing, because it's like, she wanted to be with Harry. Harry kind of felt it too, but at the end of the day, he ended up choosing Macy. So, like, you guys kind of got it all, and I kind of had nothing. I have my power and everything. Also, some of those people she was torturing and stuff like that, the last guy they show her throw out the window, it's like, oh, you're chaotic. It's like, but that guy was a demon. So it's like, I'm surprised you're so, like, but I guess it's like, demon or not, she did that. So I guess it's like the chaos she ensued by, like, having him land outside and land on somebody's car or something like that. I don't know, but it's like, I thought you would have cut her a little slack, a little leeway, because the dude was a demon. So I thought maybe you're like, we'll kind of cut that one. But like, no, they showed it to just kind of show, like, I guess it's just supposed to show what kind of person she is, regardless of demon, human, or witch or whatever. So there was that. And then eventually you had Maggie bringing Jordan out. And it's like, right, you see the good, decent man the way where he is right now. You want to blame Abigail and stuff and say like, oh, but no, he's a good man. He's in this position because of us. If you want to say Abigail's chaos, we're chaos because of all that he's been dragged through because of us. It's like time and time again, and they showcase like all the times he's helped them. And it's like, that's also the thing. It's like, how can you not judge us? We've caused chaos too because we've made mistakes, and there's been chaos ensued because of it. But it's like, but you're the charm ones. It's like, so we get a free pass, but you're not willing to give everyone else, and kind of saying like, no one deserves to be locked up there. Granted, like, yeah, some of those could be criminals and stuff like that, but some of the monsters there, we don't know if, yeah, like, maybe there'll be another means of handling things, but it's like, right, even Abigail and Jordan don't belong there. Because of what that, because the important thing that, like, I believe it was either Macy or Maggie, I mean, Macy or Mel that said it, but it's like, what you guys are missing is context. You're just encapsulating things as just, you see things as so black and white. There's shades of gray because you're missing the context too. Because once again, a great context is you set this all in motion at the beginning. What was Abigail trying to do? Yes, her demon side was running rampant. She was trying to get Jordan to help her seal away her demon side, getting rid of the chaos. So if you let things play out, you would have it would have worked out to a certain extent, but the argument could be even without her demon side, because she had her power stripped away from at a young age. To be fair, we don't know if her mom ever really went to the trouble of explaining what her circumstances were, like the way Abigail was talking, like dealing with it last episode. It didn't seem like her mom really ever bothered to really be like, oh yeah, plus your demon side, that's why things are a little crazy for you right now, but regardless. But presenting their case and everything, it didn't matter to Perfecti because it's like you're being illogical. Like he's going to be judged for like his actions and stuff like that for being chaotic. And so the Charm Ones turn against the Perfecti, exchange of power, they disappear. But it's like, where did they go and for how long? Jordan's okay. Abigail's okay. Mel and Abigail are sitting down. It's like, right, thanks for ultimately saving me. And it's like, because she's like, I'm sorry I called you irredeemable. But it's like, obviously, she's got a long way to make up for things. She just doesn't know where to start. But then she goes to Macy, thanks for saving me. It's like, nope, I did it for Jordan. She's like, yeah, I have something of yours. I'm going to find a way to get it back to you. So she's being sincere, something we haven't seen her kind of be, because you always have to judge her motives. But I think in this moment, it made her kind of realize, like, right, like, it was a big, like, look in the mirror, kind of reflect upon your actions and your choices. So it's going to be interesting to ultimately see if she is able to give Macy back her powers. Like, obviously, like, she's been kind of without her demon powers since, like, ever since they were taken away last season. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of developments that has. And will that kind of play any role in this allergy situation? I don't know. But Maggie goes to go see Jordan, but Jordan needs a break from all of this. And it's very, because I made comparisons to the original Charmed episode that this is kind of pulling from a little bit. Daryl was in a very similar position. It was actually interesting because at this point, Daryl gave up on the Charmers. He's like, I don't want to be part of the magical world. I'm not helping you guys anymore. I'm done. To be fair, like, he was aware of kind of like some of the chaos that it brought to his life. He almost died. He almost got executed. He would have left. I believe he has a wife and children. Not one. I think he had multiple children. I could be. It's been a while since I've seen the original show. But he almost lost his life because of them in the magical world. So he was kind of done helping them. I think there was stuff from time to time that led to that. But like obviously, like up to a certain point, it's before they went. Was that the like second to last season, or was it the last season when they kind of like were incognito, making it seem like the Charm Ones were dead? I believe that was the final season, because I believe like in the second to last season, at the very end of it, he figured out the Charm Ones. Like that's the last time we see Daryl. Like he's not at all in the final season, to my recollection. Like when he sees that, like, oh, there's these three women, and he figures, oh, it's got to be them just in disguise or whatever. That's the last time we see Daryl. Like he never really had too many interactions with the sisters after they went their separate ways, in the sense of like, yeah, I'm done with the magical world. It nearly cost me my life. And Jordan's kind of in that same position. It's just been one crazy thing after another, and then after another. It's just, I kind of need a break from all the chaos. And the sad thing is, Maggie was going to confess how she felt, but just sadly the timing is never quite right. And so, Jordan's going to go stay with some family for a while, and she's like, but you're going to be back, right? And he's like, I hope so. And he's like, I'm sorry for dropping that bomb on you. Like, what do you want to say? She's like, I just want to say we're sorry for all that. I'm going to miss you, and kind of walks away. And Jordan feels it too, but he's probably scared to kind of take that leap because he doesn't know how Maggie really feels. But also considering everything, it's also like, would that be the right thing? Like, should I get with Maggie? Because this is going to become my life on a daily basis if I decide to go down that route. And so that was like an interesting development. I don't think we've seen the last of Jordan. I think he will pop back up. So there's that. And then ultimately, we have the Perfecti showing back up with the tablet. It's like, so you sure this is the right course of action? Yep, we're going to have to kill the Charm Ones like we've done before. So, for one, I'm not too surprised because, right, they admitted, we are chaos. And it's like, right, we're here to keep order. And if the Charm Ones are too much chaos, then we're going to have to put them down. But apparently they've done it before. Because the Guardian brought it up, I believe it was last season, that obviously there's always something that leads to the Charm Ones dying. Because it made it seem like there was always kind of an end to the sister, like one of the sisters will die and it just kind of brings about the end of the Charm Ones. And so I'm wondering, because they've been locked away this entire time to Perfecti until like the door was blown wide open. So like they've been away for a very, very long time. So I guess way back in ancient times, they're responsible for killing the Charm Ones, or is it kind of implying like anytime anything's going wrong with the sisterhood and the Charm Ones have died, it's because they're causing too much issue and they're not being the full blown warriors of order that they're supposed to be, so we got to remove them from the board. So from behind the scenes they manipulate things. I don't know whether they're talking about old times or whether they are talking more present time. Like I said, it seemed like it was just kind of like the way things work, where just like the sister would always fall apart, but now it's like, are we adding context that there was actually more behind that, or the Perfecti just kind of a completely separate thing of like they're completely separate from that? I don't know. Brings about a lot of interesting thoughts about things going forward. So how do you fight beings like that? Now it's like, they want you dead. Also, they're the ones sending Harry off when they become mortal, kind of at the worst time. But we'll see. The sisters, he has Mel and Maggie's support. Once again, Macy's kind of like in the middle with a lot of that, but like he has their support to become human. So we'll see. His circumstances might play into why. Might play into like the Perfecti using that against the Charm Ones in some shape or form. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. The show is going on a 2-week break and will be returning on June 11th. So do keep that in mind. No new Charmed for the next 2 weeks. Returning on June 11th. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good